well, it's time to move from Life Force to Liefeld, because I reviewed Deadpool Team Up, a 2024 miniseries written and drawn by Rob Liefeld. Now, while I was a 90s kid, I never really read any of Liefeld's X-Men comics. I came into the hobby a bit too late. And so I honestly, I'm just going to say it. I was one of those guys in the 2000s sharing around some of his wonky art panels, saying, haha, Rob Liefeld is an enormous hack. Isn't he fun to make fun of? Then I actually started listening to his Rob Observations podcast. And what I will say is that whatever you think of his art style, the dude has a love of comics that is basically unmatched. In another world, he would be this generation's Stan Lee because he is just so enthusiastic about it. And so I have a great appreciation for him. So when he comes out with a new series, if it sounds interesting, I'll give it a go. A couple years back, I reviewed his, what do you call it? Who's the ninja from G.I. Joe again? Snake Eyes. His Snake Eyes miniseries, which he had done as sort of like Snake Eyes was one of the visual inspirations for Deadpool, as you can kind of see just looking at him.
Oh, yeah. Although the complete opposite, though, in terms of personality, because Snake Eyes doesn't talk,
yeah.
and Deadpool just can't shut up.
Yep. But I thought that was quite good. So one of his episodes, and also he recently had a big falling out with Marvel because for the Deadpool and Wolverine after party, he was not invited. He was there, but he was told he could not enter. And so he basically said, you know what? You've been disrespecting me for years. And following his Twitter has been kind of fun if you're like me and kind of enjoy watching people point and laugh at Marvel's foibles these days.
Yeah. I follow him too on Twitter. Yeah, he's entertaining. Yeah.
But this one I picked up because he mentioned it on his podcast, and he mentioned that he was saying goodbye to his characters in the course of it, because I think that timing wise, this would have been after that premiere and after everything. I think that because of course you have some lag time when you're making a comic. I think he was on like issue 4 of 5 or 3 of 5 when that incident happened. And I wonder how much that impacted the story, because truth be told, it's kind of like an extended series of fight scenes, is the way I'll describe it. Basic premise is that Rob Liefeld got to pick a character from a 1970s Fantastic Four annual that he read as a kid and loved. We had this guy named Rogel Dorn from a planet of dragons who appeared once and never again. And basically a dragon egg ends up on Earth, and Deadpool is given an assignment to capture it, but he ends up running into this dragon prince, Rogel Dorn guy. And over the course of things, they end up on this planet called the Weird, I believe. It's been since last week since I read it, or Weird World, that's it. Yeah. Which is supposed to be like a kaleidoscopic, always shifting landscape. And so they're trying to get this dragon egg and make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, because partway through the story, a version of Cable from a future and a Major X there, who's a newer Rob Liefeld creation for Marvel, show up to say that, basically dragons have taken over the world. And we're here to, we need to stop this from happening. And then it's basically a big last fight against this dragon army. Now, listening to the podcast, it sounded like it was, he talked about how through the voice of Deadpool, he said goodbye to these characters that he had written and loved for all these years. and that bit was a bit touching. The rest of the comic, I don't necessarily know that he was planning to leave Marvel behind forever when he started it, because most of the first part of the comic is just a character shows up because of timey-wimey shenanigans. They get into a fight with Deadpool and Wolverine. A little bit of rinse and repeat there.
Yeah.
While Deadpool makes some reasonably funny jokes. Rob Liefeld's Deadpool is a bit different than other people's Deadpool. Like, as far as I can tell, there have been 3 main flavors of Deadpool. There's the Daniel Way version from the 2000s where he had 2 voices in his head with different colors of voice bubbles to distinguish which of them they were.
Oh, that sounds like it would get confusing.
A little bit. That's also the version that the Deadpool video game was based on.
Okay.
And it made a bit more sense in that, just because you did have 2 very different voice actors. Because like the writers weren't always in the comics weren't always consistent. Because one in the video game one sounded very like erudite and stuffy, and the other one just sounded like Deadpool turned up to 13.
Okay.
So like that added to the humor, but that's neither here nor there. Then you kind of have complete insano Deadpool, who's just like waka waka waka. I'm the funny guy, chimichangas. Even though the first time he said chimichanga and made that into a joke, he just liked saying it. He explicitly did not actually like eating chimichangas. He just liked how it sounded, and that was the joke. But people missed the memo on that one, and he's become chimichanga obsessed over the years.
Yeah, I believe Ryan Reynolds even had that in the movies too.
Probably. But the Rob Liefeld / was it Joe Casey flavor of Deadpool is somebody who is a bit more serious, but just like it's kind of like classic Spider-Man, where he would just make quips to distract people, or to lessen his own mood. So he's much less madcap than you might expect if you're a modern Deadpool fan, is my overall point with this.
Okay.
Besides the tearful goodbye, like again, it is just a series of battles, which is kind of what you would expect for a team-up book.
Yeah.
I don't know how Ghost Spider got in there. Because all the other characters, it's like, okay, you have the crystal guy there. I bet he was somebody from the 70s that Liefeld was fond of. Of course, if you have the opportunity to draw Wolverine fighting the Hulk, why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
You bring in your own creations because, hey, why not? You bring in this 70s obscure character because, hey, no one else has. I'll do my own thing with them. But Ghost Spider is such a random choice. Did they just say, look, you got to have a female somewhere in this comic book after the first issue? Come on, man.
Yeah, that may have been like Brevoort or somebody like that telling them to do that.
Since I kind of think of him as an artist first and a writer second, maybe he just liked the costume and wanted an excuse to draw it.
Yeah, maybe.
But so like line wise, like it's very simple. Like there aren't really any twists or turns because you kind of find out about things as they go. Art wise, as always, Liefeld brings the action. He didn't really bring the backgrounds as much, and that's a not infrequent thing from him. But it was especially, I think there were whole issues where there might have been a couple of backgrounds drawn the whole time.
Okay.
There are also some interesting things going on with the coloring, where like when they were trying to make the weird world look kaleidoscopic, it had this bunch of paint splotches and stuff where it looked like drippy watercolors, which didn't entirely work. Like it didn't really sell the nature of weird world as the characters were describing it.
Was Liefeld a colorist too, or is he just pencil?
Pretty sure he wasn't. Yeah, I don't think he's a colorist at all.
Okay.
I don't know if he inked his own work on this one. Don't have the book handy, but
yeah.
But overall, I would say that if you're a Rob Liefeld fan, definite go. If you're not, if you're like I was a few years back and just thought he was a complete hack, no, he really isn't. He's just kind of a well-meaning dork like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Who just has a very particular art style, which works for some people and doesn't for others.
Yes,
But,
and contrary to popular belief, he can draw feet.
Yeah, see, there's a couple of them right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and two more in the back there, sort of. Yeah. We'll half credit for those.
Yeah.
They're obscured.
Yeah.
But like, if you just want to see some rip-roaring superhero fights drawn by a legend, go for it. If you're the type who prefers to have a deeper story, the last issue has that. There's also a funny bit where Rob Liefeld inserts himself into the book a little bit, but I won't spoil how that happens. But yeah, a solid C or B, and not like modern grade inflation C, where it's like, oh, if you got a C, you really had an F because they just don't want to make your parents angry. No, it's like, no, this is a solid effort.
Yeah. All right. Very cool.